So welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in today to our Health Coach Skills tutorial. I am Michelle McLean, a Health Coach Skills Mentor, and we're talking today all about how to do the accountability check-in with your client. So last week in my last video, I talked all about how to actually set and establish accountability with your client at the end of the session as part of your action plan. And so today we're following up with how do you follow up? How do you check in with your client at the next session around their accountability in terms of what they got done? So that's what we're going to do here today. This is going to be fairly quick. I'm going to just give you sort of a step-by-step process and some questions you can use in that follow-up session to check in with your client around what they committed to from the last session. So like I said, in the last session, you help them come up with an accountability plan. You ask them, how can you hold yourself accountable? You help them develop a really specific and measurable action plan. So they've gone away now and they're coming back and you're going to check in. So there's a few different ways that you can do this. And actually, before I jump into that, I did want to say that this is really, really an important part of the accountability process, and also the trust and the rapport that's built into the coaching relationship. So likely when you were setting and establishing the accountability in the previous session, you asked the client how they're going to hold themselves accountable, but you also probably said that, I'll check in with you next week. I'll look forward to checking in and seeing how things went. So you have committed to checking in with them, and it really, really is important that you do that. To keep that trust. You've made a commitment. You need to uphold your part of your coaching agreement, the commitments that you've made, and so that's why it's so important. So if every week, you say, I'm going to check in with you next week, and then the client comes and you never really ask about what happened with their action steps, then they're not going to really trust that you are upholding your part of the agreement. So really, really important part of that trust in the coaching relationship, that you do indeed follow up and do this accountability check-in with your clients. So also the other thing that I wanted to say about accountability checking in is that, this is really part of the coaching process in terms of us really helping our clients learn and grow. Like that's just a huge part of what coaching's all about. So whether or not the client actually did everything they said they were going to do, what did they learn about themselves, about their habits, about their patterns? And that's really what we want to get here in terms of the essence of the accountability check-in. We want to do it so that we're providing that accountability so that they are moving forward with their action steps each week, but we also want to deepen that learning and the growth for the client. So that's a big part of this accountability check-in. So how do we do it? What are the questions that we ask? So there's a few different ways that you can check in with your clients. There's no sort of one right way, or it's not black and white. A few different ways you can do it. Personally, I really like to do it sort of in a twofold way. I really like to send a quick email to confirm our session, maybe the week before or a couple of days before our session, making sure that we're still on. And then I just really ask the client to send me back a response and just, let me know. What were your successes this week? What were your wins? And what didn't get done? So that I have a general sense of, what they've done. And it also gives the client an opportunity to start to think about that, right? They're going to sort of report back into you. They're going to check in. So they're going to start thinking about it and they can actually write that down. So I like to do that. I get that in advance. And then of course I'm going to follow up again during the session. So that's one way you could do it. Another way is, I know a lot of coaches use a coaching prep form. So you actually have the client, complete a form which would ask those similar questions. What were you successful at? What didn't get done? You might ask some more follow-up questions on that prep form, just checking in. And then they send that in advance, and then again, you would check in around it. Or, maybe you've just established an agreement with your client that they automatically send you some sort of check-in prep form before your session. So those are some ways you could do it, and lots of other people, lots of other coaches will just, not have that prep form or that pre-session check-in, but you're just going to do it all directly in the session. So any of those ways, experiment with all of those, find what's going to work best for you and your clients. Some clients may love to do the check-in in advance. I know a lot of my clients not really wanting to do a lot of extra work and, fill in forms and things like that. That's why I've kind of gotten to the place of just doing a really quick check-in email. Confirm the session, just ask those couple of questions, what went well, what didn't go so well, and then again, following up once you actually get into the session. So once you're there in the session, some questions that you can use to do this accountability check-in, and I really, think this should be done at the top of the call. So of course you welcome them. You might have just a few moments of just a warm greeting. Maybe you're doing a breathing exercise, a meditation, something to center and ground you both in. So you might go through all of that. And then I would say sort of the first agenda item would be to do this accountability check-in, because that's, following up from the previous session. So some of the questions that you could ask, if the client has sent you in a prep form or sent you in a response to an email, you might thank them for that. So thank you so much for sending me in, the prep form or your questions. I hear that you've had some successes and wins and some things that didn't go so well. So you just want to repeat and reflect back what you've heard, what the client shared with you. And then we always want to start with a positive, right? So we're always looking at what went well, what were those successes and wins first. So some questions you might want to ask just would be, so tell me what went well. Just a general opening, have the client share with you, and of course acknowledging them, their hard work, their efforts. You want to celebrate, if they've reached a milestone or tried something new that worked really well for them. So tell me what went well, really acknowledge and reflect back what you're hearing. You might want to follow up and ask, well, what contributed to this success? What were the things that really allowed you to be successful at this action step? You may also want to ask, what did you learn from this? So again, this is where we get into the learning. What did they learn? What was an insight or a takeaway that they had from that success with that action step? Maybe what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about what works for you or what doesn't work? Just whatever that learning is. What are the takeaways that you have from achieving those successes? How are you feeling about yourself? Those are some good questions to ask. So really in this first section, that, acknowledgement, the talking about the wins and successes, really acknowledging, your client for their efforts, for their willingness to try something new. You may want to connect this back to their values, their strengths that they use to complete this action step, and really celebrating any successes that the client had. So important at that time to really acknowledge, affirm, and celebrate with your client those wins. So then we would move into, what didn't get done? Were there actions on your to-do list, on your action plan that you actually didn't get to complete? So the client would share that, tell me about those. What got in the way? Again, we still want to have learnings here, even with the things that didn't get done. We want to learn from those experiences. So what got in the way? What were the challenges or the obstacles that you faced? Because we want to bring those to the forefront so that we can either plan for them in the future, or just have that awareness and be aware of, that kind of thing just doesn't work for me. Also, if the client didn't actually get to the action steps, a lot of times it was too big. Maybe the action step wasn't a SMART action step. Maybe it wasn't specific and measurable. Maybe it wasn't timely. All of those aspects of SMART goals and action steps. So what we want to remember here is when the client did not achieve their action steps, it's not that the client was a failure, right? The client never fails. It's the goal, the action step, the strategy, whatever the plan was, that could have failed. And so we want to go back to that and really look at it and tweak it and make sure it's going to be the right plan going forward, but never does the client fail. And of course, as we're talking here about the learnings, what did you learn from that? What can you do differently next time? that's all progress. Any learning is progress. So any learning is not failure. So we want to make sure that we're not really beating up our clients. We're not, making them feel bad or like failures, but go back to those action steps. Were they, the correct action steps? What did the client try to take on too much? All of those can impact, when our client isn't successful. So, what were the challenges? What got in the way? What can you learn from this experience, and what can you do differently next time? So, what we don't want to do here in this accountability check-in is get into coaching, right? So this is just, maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the top of the call to just check back in. This isn't your actual coaching session. So you want to make sure that the client is aware. We're just checking in. What were the wins? We're going to acknowledge those. What didn't get done? Let's look at what the learnings are, what you can do differently. And now we're going to move on to the actual agenda of the coaching session. So really make it clear that this is a distinct portion of the call, and don't try to get into all of the coaching around all of this. What didn't go right, and start coaching around that. Unless, that's the topic that the client wants to focus on during the session today. So you would just move into that. Okay, thanks for checking in. And let's move on to today's agenda. And then that'll be a whole other Facebook Live where I share with you how you can really set the agenda and co-create that with your client. So this is, fairly short here today. Just really wanted to give you these questions, checking in with what's positive first, then what didn't go so well, and always looking for the learnings from both of those experiences. And, just deciding for yourself what works in terms of, do you want to send a little prep form or a prep email in advance? Or are you more comfortable just, coming together in the session and doing the check-in right then? But the bottom line here is if you have committed to check in with your client, you absolutely must do it in order to keep that trust going in the relationship. And of course, to, make sure that you're celebrating with your client and then looking at what didn't work so well and what you can learn from that. So I hope those tips are helpful in helping you do that accountability check-in in the follow-up session. So this would sort of be an ongoing thing that you would include in all of your ongoing follow-up sessions with your clients. So if you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments below. If you if you are not already part of my Facebook group, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. If you're not already part of my Facebook group, I'd love to have you come join us there. It's a group of health coaches who are really dedicated to building their confidence, their competence, their skills, and really focusing on how are we effectively and successfully coaching our clients. So the group is called Coaching Skills for Health Coaches, and I'd love to see you over there. So any questions, pop them in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer them. So have a great day, everyone, and we will talk to you next time. Bye for now.